have to win this championship or they may not get another one again. So I want to talk about something that Draymond Green said that I was like, that's kind of interesting. So Draymond Green was talking about, the game 7 coming up and how, the pressure is obviously on OKC. Well, it's on both teams, honestly, but obviously on OKC because they were the favorites and, they came out kind of flat in game 6 when they had a chance to close it out. So something that Draymond said, or what Draymond said basically, was that when you win a championship, I'm paraphrasing here, but he said when you win a championship, you have a chance to win more. When you don't win, but you got to the finals, it doesn't even have to be the finals because I'm going to explain why, but he said, but when you don't win the championship and you have an opportunity to, you start tweaking stuff. And the tweaks may put you further away from winning a championship than your original roster. So I wanted to talk about that because I was like, that is something interesting that I feel like, we don't really discuss or talk about in the NBA world. So I went back and thought about it for a minute because I was like, okay, so let me think about some of the tweaks that some teams have made when they have lost the championship. And here's why I'm saying it even goes deeper than, just when you get to the finals. But he was specifically just referencing the finals in this case. So I went back and thought about it. So I went to 2022 because we know the Boston Celtics won the championship last year. But in 2022, they had an opportunity to win the championship against, ironically, Draymond Green and the Golden State Warriors. And they lost that opportunity. And so what did they do? The next year, the roster was, from what I remember, basically the same. I don't remember if maybe they picked up somebody different, but they didn't have Porzingis or Drew Holiday next year on the roster either. But they knew if they wanted to win a championship, they had to make tweaks. Now, maybe they also thought, because they had just got to the NBA Finals, that the experience would be enough to get them over the hump. Because the roster was still very good, obviously. They got to the finals for a reason. So I'm saying their thought process may have been like, okay, if we just run it back one more year, we will do it. Well, what happens? They lose to the Miami Heat in the Eastern Conference Finals. So that made it apparent to them. I know Jason Tatum hurt his ankle at the beginning of Game 7, but there's no guarantee they were going to win that game anyway. And, Miami versus Boston has been 50-50, over the last few years that they matched up. So, when Jimmy was there, obviously. So, with that being said, after losing in 2023, they knew they had to make moves. They had to figure out how to get this roster to a championship contender. And so what they did was they got a little lucky in the fact that, Drew Holiday got traded to the Portland Trail Blazers because if Milwaukee never trades him, they don't get Drew Holiday. But, a little bit of luck is always involved. So what do? They go and get Drew Holiday from the Portland Trail Blazers and they go pick up Porzingis, his value was, down compared to what it was, a few years prior. So they picked up those two players and they were key pieces of them. Sorry, there's something in my eye. They were key pieces of them winning the championship. So those are tweaks that the Celtics made, but it ends up working in their favor and they won the championship with those tweaks. But that doesn't always happen. That's not always the case. Because what happened in 2021? The Phoenix Suns were in the NBA Finals and they had a 2-0 lead on the Milwaukee Bucks. And they end up losing that series. Ironically, Drew Holiday there again. And what happens? Again, the next year, I think the roster was largely, the same and stuff like that. Because I feel like a lot of teams' mentality, especially if it's their first time, sorry, there's really something in my eye. I'm really sorry. I feel like a lot of teams, if it's their first time getting to the finals, their mentality, at least in a long time with a brand new, kind of roster, their mentality might be like, let's try to basically run it back one more year, unless there was a clear free agent or, something apparent that they could do to fix the roster. So what happens is the next year the roster was basically the same. And then the next year after that, they trade for Kevin Durant. And they have not got back to the finals since. Not only have they not got back to the finals, they haven't even been close. The Phoenix Suns have not been close to the NBA Finals since they made their appearance in 2021. So, some of it always is a little bit of luck. We understand that. But like they had a game 7 opportunity against the Dallas Mavericks, and the Dallas Mavericks blew them out of the water. You remember that game. If you know, you know. Luka just had the Phoenix Suns number. So let's say they made tweaks, a lot of tweaks, and they have not been back since. They have not been close. And to top it all off, they're about to trade Kevin Durant. So not only did they trade for Kevin Durant 2 seasons ago to help them get to a championship, they're about to trade Kevin Durant because they didn't get to a championship in these last 2 years. So, the fact of the matter is, tweaks, like Draymond said, do happen. And sometimes they work out in teams' favor, but a lot of times it doesn't work out. And basically what Draymond was saying is like, if you don't capitalize, if you don't win this championship right now, well, you have one of the best opportunities to win. You have home court advantage, and we know home court hasn't mattered as much, in my opinion, in the recent, seasons. But we all know OKC crowd is crazy in a good way, like very loud, very energetic, very supportive. And they definitely do have home court advantage in this case. So you have home court advantage. Your team is classified as the better team. Tyrese Halliburton is hurt. I know he played very well last game, and you couldn't tell, but I don't know what he's going to look like in game 7. So there is I want to say zero reason to not capitalize. There is always a reason, the other team may play better. It's not that, Indiana clearly is a good team. They made it here for a reason, right? So let's not act like, if OKC lost for whatever reason, it's they still played a good team. However, like Draymond said, if you don't win this championship now, you may not ever win it. And that's partly because of something that he didn't say, but I'm going to say, is the CBA and the restrictions, which I've talked about so many times on this channel. I know it's annoying. I know nobody wants to talk about it, but it really does. And I actually talked about this in my live stream the other day. I was saying OKC, in terms of age and their progression and how well they play together and stuff like that and their depth, I was like, all that is definitely a team that could have dynasty, type of runs, I guess. That team, the talent, the camaraderie, all that kind of stuff. But I said the new CBA and the money and the financial implications of roster construction now with the second apron and stuff like that is going to prevent them from becoming a dynasty, or basically any dynasty. I was saying I think dynasties might be over, at least for the near future, just because the new CBA has so many financial implications. It's really hard to stack your roster. It's incredibly difficult. Even though they drafted Chet, Jalen, and Shea, I was saying one of them, obviously not Shea, but I was saying one of them might end up being the odd man out. And even though they drafted them, even though they were homegrown, they may not be able to pay them just because of all the restrictions, and then still have, a deep roster. So I wasn't saying the talent or anything is going to prevent them, but I was saying this new CBA might prevent anybody from having a dynasty. So, oh my God, my eye. I'm so sorry. There's really something, I think there's an eyelash in my eye and it's really hurting me. This will be funny on playback for people watching. So with all that being said, so I don't know if there's going to be any dynasties in the next couple of years. But going back to the whole point, because you have a chance to win the championship right now, when your team is fully healthy, fully put together, you have all this depth, you have to take a chance because you may not get back. So now going back to what I was saying earlier, teams that didn't even get to the finals never even made it to the finals after some tweaks they made, right? Let's look at the Dallas Mavericks, right? I know this just happened, and they didn't go to the NBA Finals. Obviously, Luka took them to... Actually, no, wait, what am I saying? They did go to the NBA Finals. Here you go, another example. The Dallas Mavericks just went to the NBA Finals last year against the Boston Celtics. I don't know why I said no for a second. The Dallas Mavericks were in the NBA Finals last year, and what'd they do? They traded Luka. They said, goodbye, we can't win with you, Luka. We're going to trade for somebody else to win a championship. I know that's not what they said, but that's kind of what they said. So we're talking about Luka, who was a top 5 player in his prime, and they were like, you know what? We made it to the championship level. We made it to the NBA Finals. And we don't think we can win a championship with you next year or moving forward. And that's a tweak. And that's not a little tweak. That's a big tweak. So can you imagine what type of tweaks other teams have made that have taken them further away from a championship? Now, obviously, we'll see what Dallas does in the future. They're getting Cooper Flag, most likely. But still, like, they didn't even make the playoffs this year. And I understand Kyrie got hurt and stuff like that. But they didn't get any closer to a championship by trading Luka for this particular season. I'll tell you that. So if you look at other teams in the past too, like if you just go through playoff runs and teams that got knocked out in the first round, the second round, stuff like that, like, you know, when you get knocked out, you kind of evaluate the roster and be like, where do we need to improve? And sometimes where you need to improve is either not available in free agency, or it might just be kind of like an experience thing. Like you need to, you know, play together a little bit longer. I'm not saying don't go out and try to get better talent and stuff like that. But what I'm saying is like sometimes, like Draymond said, these tweaks actually hurt you more than they help you. And sometimes there's no need to panic and just, you know, make this big time trade if it's not necessarily beneficial to your team. And especially a team like OKC, you know, going back to them, who are very young. And I know I just said the CBA might break them up because of the money thing. But besides that, like, there's no reason to rush, right? Like, I know people were talking about if they lose this championship, they should go trade for Giannis. And I don't agree with that. Now, the thing is, like I said, Jalen and Chet are still on their rookie contracts. So Milwaukee would probably want one of them. So that's already like you have to give up, you know, one of those their big three, if you want to call it their big three. I wouldn't call it a big three, I know, but I'm just saying like they're top 3 players. But even besides that, you still have to make the salary match for Giannis. Like, you may have a ton of picks, so you don't have to give up a ton of players because you have so many picks to give up for Milwaukee, which is fine. But you still have to match the salaries, which means you have to include a few players because you're not trading Shea and everybody else doesn't make a ton of, not everybody else, but like, you know, these top guys don't make a ton of money yet. So you have no choice but to trade your depth away. And what I'm saying is like, sure, Giannis is Giannis and every team should try to get him. But like, I think I said when the Giannis, you know, situation was going on, I feel like 28 teams, I think I said, should try to trade for him. I'm not saying OKC shouldn't call and see what they're asking for Giannis. That's not what I'm saying. I think Giannis is obviously a huge difference maker. But I think in OKC's case, they're in a unique, you know, position as compared to some of these other teams. You know, even the younger ones like Houston, who has been attached to Giannis, which I've said multiple times. I just don't see that. I don't think it's a good fit for Giannis or for Houston. I just don't get that matchup, that match, you know, whatever. But I feel like that's different though. Like I feel like them trading for Giannis, like that kind of makes sense. Like they struggle to score. They need to put points on the board. I don't think it fits because they have enough wings. I think they need shooting. Like I think they need more like a KD type player, not Giannis. But that's neither here nor there. The point is, OKC, putting the CBA aside, is so young. There is no reason that after their first trip to the NBA Finals, when Jalen and Chet are still under contract, they're not going anywhere right now, and Jalen and Chet are probably going to get extensions too. So you don't have to rush to trade them and break up this whole team, right? Like, if you happen to lose this year, I say run it back. I agree with Draymond in the sense I don't think they need to make tweaks. Now, if you could pick up maybe another veteran in free agency, like I know there's not another Alex Caruso out there in free agency, but you know what I mean? Like if you could pick up someone like that on a veteran minimum where you don't have to trade anybody, then yeah, I agree with that. But like to make a blockbuster trade in this, you know, with the way that OKC is constructed, I don't agree with that. Now, I may be wrong. You may trade for Giannis as if you're OKC and then you win the championship next year, and I have no problem being wrong about that. I'm not saying Giannis doesn't make a difference. I'm just saying I feel like that's kind of like a panic trade. Like I feel like they don't need to panic and trade for Giannis. You know, I feel like that's just a little premature. Like, it's a catch-22 because, again, if you don't make a move, maybe you never get back either, because then what if you traded for Giannis and you could have went to the championship and won? So I understand it's always a catch-22. So you just have to kind of just take a risk in a way. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. I would just say I feel like at least wait one more year if they happen to lose, because I feel like you got to at least see if like Jalen and Chet, you know, get even better and stuff like that. So the point is, we see teams all the time go to the NBA Finals and never get back. Like, just because you went there doesn't mean you'll get back. Did you hear what Pascal Siakam said? I try to remember where he was saying this. You know, he was talking to, I don't know if he was talking like in, what's it called? Like a post-game press conference or whatever it was. And I'm paraphrasing here, and I'm pretty sure it was Pascal Siakam who said this, but like, when he went to the NBA Finals with the Raptors in 2019, that was 7 years ago, 8 years, 6 years ago, whatever, 6 years ago, whatever it was. And so he had said basically like, oh, like, I'm young, like, this team is really good, we're going to go to the finals again and again, like, I'm going to get there. And he is like, I haven't gotten there since I got there. Like, that's basically what he was saying. And like, he was talking about how it's so hard to get back, and that like, it's not a guarantee that you get back, even though he was like, I have plenty of time, like, I'm still young, but like, that doesn't mean your team is going to make it back. So I agree with Draymond that like, you know, obviously if you don't win, like, it happened. There's nothing you can do about it. But I agree with Draymond in the sense, like, you got to capitalize. If you can make yourself win, if there is a way to will yourself to a win, you have to do it. Somebody said Denver is sort of stuck. Yeah, they've been stuck, you know, for the last year or so. Losing Bruce Brown was just like the first domino that just kind of trickled down into what happened to Denver now. Obviously, you still have Jokic, so you're always going to have a chance, but like I gotta figure out something with that roster. Somebody said Giannis is not going to OKC ever again. Oh, ever. Okay, because I was like, ever again? When did he ever go? Okay, so yeah, if that's the other thing. I think if Giannis is going to get traded, he's getting traded somewhere where he wants to go. Like, they're not trading him somewhere where he doesn't want to go. There's no way. So if he doesn't want to go to OKC, I agree with you. I just don't think it really makes sense for both teams at this point. Like, Giannis, obviously, again, super talented, makes sense on pretty much every team. It's just they're in a unique situation. So it just depends what, you know, they would have to give up for Giannis. Somebody said they got to pay Chet and J-Dub in a year. And the year after that, Supermax, whatever, for Shea. So Shea is actually eligible for a $380 million Supermax, which he will obviously get. Yeah, they're going to pay Chet and J-Dub maybe after this finals. I'm not sure. J-Dub has 1 year left on his contract, so I think he might be extension eligible like this summer. I'm not sure about Chet because I think Chet was a year later after J-Dub. He might still be also. So when they get the opportunity, they definitely are going to extend those guys. I'm just saying, like, you know, if the new CBA has any kind of, you know, stand in their way kind of thing, that may be where they kind of get stuck. So it just depends. But I still think OKC is going to win Game 7, so I guess it doesn't really matter, in my opinion, obviously. Like, I think OKC is going to win Game 7. I think they close it out and they get their first championship as, you know, this young team. And OKC fans are going to go crazy. That's my prediction. That's my opinion. So thank you guys so much for watching this live stream. I hope you enjoyed, and see you next time. Bye.